Hey everyone. Thank you for sharing your time with us tonight. We've got, like Anne said, we've got a jam-packed line of speakers, and hopefully you're able to learn something, even just a little bit from us, wherever you are in your creative journey. Again, I'm Che. I'm the brand illustration lead at Canva, and today I'll talk to you about how brand illustration can be a great tool for creative problem solving. I'll be sharing some of my favorite projects and some bits and pieces about how we tackled them and what are some considerations that we've made along the way. I'll also be sharing some key principles that I always take with me, kind of like guiding stars every time I tackle creative briefs. But before we begin, some bits about myself. Often when people ask me what I do for work, I like to say that I draw for a living. That often intrigues people, I think. I mean, it's fun to think that you get paid to draw. But on a more serious note, my role revolves around creatively leading projects and solving briefs with my small but mighty team through brand illustration. But what is brand illustration and how do we use it? Brand illustration is a part of a brand's visual identity. So when you think of a brand, you might think of logos or colors. But beyond that, there's a much more expansive set of things that make up a whole brand, from values, photography, motion, typography, sometimes even illustration. And if used well, brand illustrations can actually help your brand connect with your community in a more human and personalized way. I've been personally in the brand creative practice for almost 10 years, and 5 to 6 of those years are with Canva, where I first joined as a brand designer. Eventually, I transitioned into specializing in brand illustration, and although much of my background is in brand work, I wasn't really always aware that this was a path for me as an illustrator when I was still starting. I fell in love with illustration as first and foremost a form of self-expression. And much of what I knew about illustration in the early days revolved around easy to publish black and white comics. You'll see a picture of my first work here. And while these kinds of illustrations are still very much close to my heart, being part of Canva's creative team exposed me to the many different ways illustration could actually be a creative solution that could impact hundreds, if not thousands, of people through initiatives that are much larger than myself. An example of this was when we redesigned our print packaging. So I think this will forever be my most favorite project of all. We were sharing the message of Canva's commitment to sustainability, where we plant 1 tree in sites around the world for every print order that you purchase. This data may be a bit outdated now, but I think we've hit over 7 million trees planted around the world. What really makes this project special to me, apart from the positive impact, is the intentionality that goes behind every decision that we made for this redesign. So from messaging, typography, to illustration, the print team also made sure that the materials used were recyclable and that the boxes were printed sustainably with soy-based ink. So my first key principle is to create intentional, community-focused designs. If everyone, even if you're crafting for your own brand, it will be intended for someone else to use and to experience. So make sure you're thinking about them when you're making creative decisions. Think, how might they use this and how might they interact with this? What is it that you want them to feel, to think, and to do? In this project, we wanted our community to feel seen and special, not just through the bespoke designs, but also by creating surprising moments, like having multiple empowering quotes greeting you as you open the box. Shout out to Gian for the gorgeous type work. You'll hear from him later on. We also rolled out limited edition boxes featuring artists from around the world. So apart from our Canva-owned design boxes that remain constant, some people may surprisingly receive a limited edition box designed by these talented artists. So we have boxes designed by Araquan from South Korea. It's the first image there. And in the middle, you have PV Azevedo from Brazil. And then we also collaborated with Eugenia Mello from New York and Argentina on the rightmost side. Of course, we also have one of our very own, Jill Arteche. And in this brief, we wanted their work to be the hero and the highlight of the box. So we had them illustrate their own interpretation of what it means to empower using their own visual style and visual voice. We also want our community to know of their positive impact to communities around the world. So many of you might not know that when you receive a box, you're actually contributing positively. So we made sure to theme our messaging and around sustainability and throughout our One Print, One Tree program. So fun fact, this is one of our boxes illustrated internally. And the pattern of these boxes actually feature 3 of the many species of plants, trees that we're planting around the world. And we mentioned this as at the side of the box. So this box says, this packaging design was inspired by the, I hope I pronounce this right, Trichilia hirta. So it's one of the over 205 species, native species that we're planting around the world. Lastly, what we want people to do is to continue our sustainability efforts by recycling the boxes that we receive. So the hope is to make these boxes feel so special, you'd want to reuse them rather than throw them away. We even snuck in recycling tips. If you inspect the insides of your boxes, let us know in the chat if you've discovered any of these tips. Also, if you've recycled any of your boxes, let us know how you reuse them. It's going to be an interesting case. This is just one of the many projects that where we've used illustration to not only communicate an idea, but also connect with our community in general through intentional design. So remember, the first principle, the next time you're starting a brand project, one principle to keep in mind is to create intentional community-focused designs. The next principle is slightly related to that. So how do you know what to base your intentions or decisions on? Every great brand has a solid set of values and principles. So how you connect and create your solutions for your audience depends on the values of your brand. So take them to heart and lean into them with every decision that you make. Depending on your brand's values and identity, you can be as fun and as quirky as Duolingo's Al, if you do use Duolingo. Their brand's principles allow them to create duality in Duolingo's personality, and that's what makes him loved by its users. Or you could also be as clean and professional as Microsoft's new illustration system. Really, there's no one style that rules them all. What's important is that you know your brand's values and your brand's principles and use those pillars for your creative and stylistic decisions. For Canva, our mission is to empower everyone in the world to design. So there are many ways to go about that. So as a brand, we have these 3 pillars that we base all of our creative decisions on: human, inspiring, and empowering. As an example, just last year, we launched our first ever Canva meetup. It targeted young professionals looking to connect with folks from their field and potentially exploring opportunities at Canva. So looking at our pillars in Canva, we knew that to be human means to be comfortable with imperfection. So we knew that we wanted this event to be casual and welcoming for people to come as they are. So we chose to lean into the idea of a kamustahan, which is a pretty common greeting when you welcome people to your home. To be inspiring, the second pillar of our brand, stylistically we chose to lean into doodled illustration. This style makes it feel more casual, and the use of witty metaphors inspire a creative vibe overall. Lastly, to empower. In this project, that meant that we had to create experiences that made it easy for our guests to enjoy and get the most out of the program. So apart from the keynotes, we had mingo bingos, conversation starters around the venue, but somewhere in the space, we also had a welcome board where they can leave their thoughts and maybe even some feedback around what they would like to see more of in the next events. In this event identity, we were able to use illustration as the main device in which we shared ideas around fun, creative connections. But it only worked well because we aligned our decisions very closely to our brand pillars. This way, we're effectively making an event that felt not only truly local, but truly Canva. So a recap of the second principle, we said it was always important to be community-focused in making creative decisions, but there are a handful of ways to do that. So in the second principle, having well-formed brand values and leaning into them for those decisions will help you make designs or illustrations that feel honest and authentic to your brand. Next up, my favorite Canva value, make complex things simple. I use it in everything I do, I especially hold this value so close to my heart when I illustrate. So the next principle is largely related to that. Make complex ideas simple. Simplifying is by far the hardest skill to learn. Honestly, I'm still learning, but it's also the most rewarding. There's beauty in being able to focus on what's truly necessary, focusing you to be more intentional with every creative decision that you make. So if the first few principles were about making decisions, crafting, this is about refining and stripping down to the essentials. This doesn't mean that everything has to be minimalist though, so it just means that every detail has to matter. Illustrations naturally make complex things simple by communicating an abstract idea or telling a story imagined in just a single image. But the key thing is, if you're gonna say something, say it clearly. Eugenio Mello, if you remember, one of the artists we collaborated with, is one of the, I'm such a huge fan of this artist, especially in the way that she's able to illustrate such an abstract and complex idea like sound, rhythm, especially like really warm emotions. Through her work, you might get a sense of how powerful illustration can be. And when done right, illustration can actually transcend language barriers and allow you to connect with a larger group of people simply through pictures. Quick exercise in the chat. When you see a heart, what concepts and ideas or emotions come to mind? Keep sharing ideas. See this heart even as emojis. I see love. It's really good. Excitement. Honestly, personally, when I see a heart, I think of love as well and a general feeling of warmth. When you see a hug or this kind of emoji, what do you think? I see family, friends, care, compassion. It's really good. I personally think of care and compassion as well. So when we often use this emoji on Slack at work, when we want to give our teams, especially from around the world, a warm hug, even from miles away. Lastly, when you see a light bulb as a symbol, what comes to mind? Ideas, really good. So exactly, some might say ideas, some might say innovation. There may be different words for similar things, but isn't it beautiful that simple symbols can communicate things as complex as emotions or something intangible like ideas or innovation? This is because as people who have shared experiences, we also have a shared understanding of things. And because of this shared understanding, we have universal symbols that mean the same wherever you are in the world. Project Share. A while back, we got this brief to make fun illustrations for some emails when you order print products from Canva. So this brief was to make a series of fun, easy to follow illustrations for our emails. And some fun early concepts you'll see here. We started with a dog. Maybe like to share the concept of delivery. Could a dog be doing the delivery? Dogs are lovable. At one point, we also thought hands, but the explorations got a little weird, and it's fine if it does. But these were all fun and somehow felt quite random. So we workshopped the concepts a bit more to make the ideas simpler, straight to the point. So one really memorable lesson that I still take with me in my creative work is that if it takes you more than one step to make a connection between your illustration and the thing that you want to communicate, you'll probably need to simplify further. So from dogs and hands, we decided to go with really hardworking birds that take care of your orders from boxing to delivery, seeing as birds are more common symbols for message delivery. We actually did so many explorations for this before we landed on a handful of illustrations that we wanted to roll out. And we do this kind of broad exploration for all the projects that we do. We cast our nets wide, and naturally, most ideas won't make the cut. So I'm gonna steal my creative director's words and give you an extra takeaway. Principle 3.5 is to not be afraid to do backflips. And I don't mean physically, I don't know how to do that. But creatively, that just means not being afraid to start from scratch if an idea isn't working out. Sometimes that's just a part of simplifying, editing, and discovering the solution that works best. So to recap, in this section, as you're refining your ideas and aiming to make complex things simple, that doesn't mean that minimalism is the way. It just means that every detail matters. And if in the process of refining you hit a roadblock, don't be afraid to do backflips and start from scratch if necessary. Last, but definitely not the least, be the champion of fun creative solutions. A lot of creatives, even myself, struggle with creative briefs that just don't, spark joy, and that's natural. But it's been helpful to remind myself that as the creative, I have control over how much fun I can make this project out to be. So we had the privilege to chat with Andy J. Pizza. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's a really talented illustrator. Last year about character design and just creativity in general. And to quote him on this topic, he said, Creativity lies in the challenge of finding a way to answer a brief in a way that still feels true and exciting for you. And as the creative, you have the control. One of my favorite projects is the stairwell mural at our Manila campus. It doesn't look exciting yet, bear with me. Our office experience team came to us with a problem. So not enough people are using the stairs on all 7 floors. How do you turn a space that no one wants to go into, or a space that people don't really enter, into a space that people would eventually intentionally enter and actually enjoy? Of course, there were lots and lots of ideas, like gamifying each floor, incorporating calorie count for every step. But what was important to note that the designs needed to stay relevant whichever floor you enter from. So not everyone is going to be going from ground floor all the way to level 7. Someone might enter from, say, level floor. So in the spirit of making complex simple, we went with going with a narrative that people will be able to easily follow. In every floor, we showed noteworthy sites from around the Philippines. This way, Canvanauts can be tourists in their own country and discover diverse Philippine sites on their own way to the office. In each floor, we would have fun facts about each site, about its flora and fauna. And in the ground floor, we highlighted the Apo Reef with interesting facts about our butandings, and a more important reminder to avoid close encounters, to respect them, and to look but not touch if you ever get a chance to see them. In level 2, we have the Malapascua Reef from its underwater scenes. We rise to level 3, showing the Philippine mangroves, and then our Puerto Princesa underground in level 4. And then in level 5, slightly higher in elevation, we talk about Lake Venado at the foot of Mount Apo. Urban legend says that a mystical white deer leads lost trekkers out of the forest and back to their camping site. In level 6, we start hiking up Mount Apo and seeing endemic species that live there. And then in level 7, finally, you've reached the peak, highlighting not just how high up you've hiked, but also the indigenous communities that call Mount Apo home. So from an unwanted stairwell, we've now turned it into a colorful educational space that everyone enjoys. This project was a memorable one, but only because the team made it so. So don't be let down by a difficult problem or a brief that may not excite you at first. Take control. It is up to you to think of all the fun, creative solutions. So, there are lots more examples and too many to mention for the time that we have. But if anything, I hope that this gives you a wider perspective of how brand illustrations can actually be powerful creative solutions, especially when it comes to creating human connection. The key principles to keep in your back pocket as you tackle your next brand illustration brief are: first, create intentional community-focused designs. Second, know your brand's values and lean into them. Third, make complex things simple and don't be afraid to do backflips. And lastly, be the champion of fun, creative solutions. I think that's it. I hope you learned a thing or two from me. Thank you so much for listening.